Now, the federal government, as we know, buys almost everything. But the thing that you do, how much of it is it buying and who is doing the buying? Which departments, which agencies, and which offices are buying what I sell? When you start slicing and dicing the numbers, looking at the data is going to tell you a story. Agencies you should be focusing on and which ones you should not be focusing on based on their buying patterns. You don't want to be marketing to someone who doesn't buy what you sell. Is it worth pursuing this line of product or service offering? Welcome to my channel. My name is Dr. Curtis A. Merriweather Jr., but you can call me Dr. Curtis. As many of you guys know, in 2020, I was named a game changer by the White House Policy Advisor for Innovation Entrepreneurship. I want to serve as your government contracting coach. Now, as many of you guys know, you've been watching this channel for any length of time. The purpose of this channel is to educate entrepreneurs. Now, the way we do this education is through consultation, training, and education support services. I want to help you lower your learning curve, and I want you to become profitable in your business faster. Now, the way we do this is through advanced education. Many of you guys know in 2023, I completed my PhD in management from a great institution. So we want to make sure we share advanced principles in education. We want to share practical experience and lessons learned based on a 27-year journey in the government contracting game. Now on your screen, you're going to see my Instagram handle. Please know my Instagram handle has changed. Definitely give me a follow. Love to get your comments, questions, and feedback. Always drop a comment below the video. Always appreciate it. On the screen now, you'll see our 8-figure government contracting teaching platform. That URL is on the screen. Definitely go check out the platform. You can always go directly to the course store library and take a look around, browse around. I'm sure you'll find some content that can help you on your government contracting journey. And also look at our blog post on the website. I'm sure you'll find some interesting reads on our blog platform. On March 12th of this year, I will be doing our monthly, and I do these every month. I'll be doing our monthly free information session. It is free, but registration is required. The details will be below this video, so definitely sign up, and I look forward to seeing you on a virtual session on March 12th. I do these every month, so you can always jump on a free information session. Definitely, then we always try to leave room for questions and answers. Okay. Before I jump into my topic today, I have a great topic for you all. You can see the title. Before I jump into my topic, I want you to like, I want you to share, subscribe. I want you to smash the subscribe button. And looking at our metrics, we see we have a lot of people who watch the channel who are not subscribed. So please subscribe. And anytime I create a new video, hit the notification bell. Anytime I create a new video, you'll be notified most promptly, so you don't get behind and you get the latest and greatest content that we have to offer on this channel. Okay, with no further ado, I want to get into the topic of the conversation that we're going to curate today. And the question I want to address, I get people who ask me all the time, I'm new to government contracting. I don't know what to sell. So I plan to demystify that process in 5 simple steps so you can get up and running on your government contracting journey. I know you see the videos on social media telling you about the top 5 this, the top 7 that. But regardless of where you're coming to government contracting for, I want to give you some food for thought as you navigate where you would like to begin your government contracting journey. Like many of you guys, I was working a regular 9 to 5, and I learned about this thing called government contracting around about 2008. And I wanted to get my piece of the government contracting pie. So I had the same question that many of you guys probably are wrestling with today. So the purpose of this video is to shed some insight in helping you kind of digest and devise your path forward. So let's just jump right into our topic. The first question you need to ask when you're talking about or trying to determine which direction you're going to lean into on your government contracting journey, the very first question you have to ask is, what are you good at? What am I good at? What is it that I can do? Many of us, most of the time, this is not our first rodeo. Many of us have had jobs prior to, especially my background. I had been working for a federal agency for several years before I decided to take the leap. So you have to, number one, ask yourself the question, what am I good at? Now, what do you need to know? So you need to determine, what role are you currently doing today? If you're currently working for someone, what role are you doing today? What jobs have you worked prior that may lend well or translate well into a government contracting service or product offer? So you got to ask yourself, what do you know how to do? The second thing you want to ask yourself, and what are you good at? You want to look at, if you're bringing partners on, which this is not a video advocating for or against partners, but if you're bringing a partner onto your team, you're starting this business with someone, what capabilities and experience do your potential partners bring to bear in this government contracting pursuit? And then the third thing you have to ask yourself, personal experience, what personal experience and personal experience of your partners may contribute to telling the story around corporate past performance. Now, I recognize everyone who comes to government contracting may not have had a company before, and that's fine. What personal experience do you have that you can tell a narrative around, so you can actually entice potential primes or subcontractors? We'll talk about it in a little bit. So you can paint a narrative that you're not new to this. You may be new to this thing that we call government contracting, but you have developed a resume already, and that resume will serve as a foundation upon which your government contracting venture will be established upon. I hope you guys are following me. So the very first question is, what am I good at? What are you good at? What do you know how to do? This is going to be very important when we get to some of the later steps we're going to discuss today. What capabilities do you or your partners bring to bear? What do you guys know how to do? And so just really deconstructing what kind of roles and functions you've been in, and how does this translate into a new government contracting venture? That's our very first question. Now, our second question. So once we've identified what roles, what functions, what capabilities do we bring to bear, we need to determine what are the proper codes that government contractors use to explain, to delineate, to describe their service offerings. We have these things called these NAICS codes, the North American Industrial Classification System. We're going to contrast that with the product service code. There are two different ways at looking at the government contracting market. One, the NAICS code looks at it from an industrial perspective, looking at it from an industry base. The PSC codes, or the product service codes, classifies service offerings based on a category management system. I call it two sides of looking at the same coin. There's no right or wrong. In my trainings, I talk about when I like to use one over another, specifically from a market intelligence perspective. But I want to keep moving. So we got to identify the NAICS codes from an industry perspective based on personal experience and corporate capability. I recognize people come here from different stages in their business journey. Some of you guys have businesses already, so you're going to look at the NAICS codes that are applicable. If you have not had prior business experience, look and try to determine which NAICS codes, which are industry specific, which NAICS codes speak to the capabilities that you bring together from a personal resume perspective. Secondly, you want to also identify your PSC codes based on category management. You want to look at your personal experience again and corporate capability. Again, the PSC versus NAICS code is looking at a coin from two different angles, two different perspectives, and there's some pros and cons of each, which we don't want to get into in this particular video, but I do want to delineate there is a difference, and we need to know when to use those differences. But for this point, we don't want to make this a long video. Just recognize you need to determine what are the appropriate classification systems for identifying the business and or product or service offerings. So let's keep moving. That's number 2. Now, the third thing we want to do is we want to conduct market intel. So number 1, we determined what we were good at. Number 2, we've identified the proper coding system. Now 3, we want to conduct market intelligence based on the coding system identified. So whether that's NAICS codes, PSC codes, if you're talking about doing stuff at state, local government, it may be an NIGP code. There's a tons of codes. Find out which codes are applicable for where you're doing business. Now, guys know that I focus primarily on federal contracting, so it's going to be the NAICS codes and the PSC codes primarily for me. If you're doing state, local, international contract, the coding system may be different, but they typically have the same function. We won't get into today why they use the codes from a global perspective or a macro perspective, but just identify the right coding system. And then you want to use the coding system to conduct your market intel, your market research. Now, when I start talking about market intel, I'm talking about gathering the data that's going to help you determine the right decisions for the business. Market intel, market research, big terms. We want to kind of drill down a little further. So we want to conduct market intelligence to determine the size of the industry that we're interested in. So remember, we started with what do I know how to do? We found a code. Now, before you go and start incorporating your new LLC or your corporate structure, whether that's a C Corp or an S Corp, before you go down that trail, you need to determine if the service or product offerings you're planning on delivering, if there's sufficient size. Because it may be something you got to do, but the market may not be buying a lot of that. Now, the federal government, as we know, buys almost everything. But the thing that you do, how much of it is it buying and who is doing the buying? Let's ask ourselves a couple questions when we start talking about conducting market intel. When you start slicing and dicing the numbers, looking at the data is going to tell you a story. Does the federal, local, or state government purchase your target service or product, the thing you're good at? I talk about target product or service, the thing you're good at, the thing that you're investigating. Does the federal government buy that? And if you're talking state, you want to see, does the state buy that? Is your municipality buying it? If you're selling it overseas, does the international or target country purchase the product or service you're planning on pushing out into the space? We're kind of doing, for lack of a better terms, a very down and dirty feasibility study. Is it worth pursuing this line of product or service offering? Second question, when we're doing this market intel, you got to ask yourself, based on the data, who is making the purchases? Which agencies, higher level, which departments, which agencies, and which offices are buying what I sell? This is extremely important. We need to make sure that the things we're selling, the services and the product offerings, do we know who's buying them? So who's making the purchase? This is what we want to uncover in our market intel process. Number 3, how much is being purchased? Are they purchasing 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures, 9, 10? How much of it is being bought? And then last but not least, how often are they purchasing these services? You may be in the IT space. You guys know I come from an IT background. You may be in the IT space, and you may have found some data that says this specific agency is buying IT services, but they're only buying, and I know an agency, I'm not going to call the agency, every 5 years. So if you're in the IT space, that might not be an agency you want to focus on because there's not enough demand for that particular product or service offering at that agency. It's not a bad thing. Know which agencies you should be focusing on and which ones you should not be focusing on based on their buying patterns. You don't want to be marketing to someone who doesn't buy what you sell. So what we're trying to do in this third step of conducting market intel or market research, we want to identify who's buying what we sell. And if they're buying throughput sufficient enough to determine focusing on that particular customer to create a buying pipeline with. Number 4, we have to develop a strategy. So we've identified what are we good at? We've identified the proper coding system. We've conducted some market intel. All that's great, but it needs to lead to a strategy, and strategy needs to lead to action. We don't just do this stuff because we have nothing else to do. We do this because it's going to shape our strategy for obtaining contracts. So number 4, you got to develop a strategy. Now, in developing a strategy, you want to develop your go-to-market strategy based on the following. Number 1, you want to target the federal, state, local agency that meets your current customer profile. Who buys what you're selling? Now, the second part of that is identify the preferred contract vehicle. Are they using contracts or purchase orders? Now, again, based on the service and product offerings that you are bringing forward, based on your go-to-market strategy. When I talk about go-to-market strategy, I'm talking about how are you going to take what you sell, product or services, and get it to your target customer. We call that your go-to-market strategy. So are they purchasing based on contracts or purchase orders? Let me narrow down purchase orders even more narrowly. Are they using credit card? Are they using contracts, purchase orders, credit cards? I just want to make some distinctions because the thresholds for each may vary based on the acquisition method employed by the agency. Do you understand the buying patterns of the agency, not just in terms of frequency and what, but also the how? Are they using government-wide agency contracts known as a GSA schedule? That may be an approach. GSA may not be the path for everyone, but is there sufficient intelligence? Is there specific data that says you may want to consider GSA or GWAC contracts? Are they using multiple award, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contracts? Multiple award IDIQ? Is that the prevailing strategy based on what you're selling in terms of product or service needs to that particular agency? Every agency does this slightly different. Are they using single award contracts to purchase what you're selling? Maybe you may have some social economic statuses. Are they using simplified acquisitions? Are they using sole source contracts? How is the agency buying or procuring, acquiring, pick your adjective or your verb, how are they acquiring what you're selling? And then when they are purchasing, what's the length? Is it short-term fulfillment or is it long-term fulfillment? Is it we're going to issue the task order or the simplified acquisition and you got a certain period of time to get it done? Or is this a contract action spread out over task orders or delivery orders over a prolonged time period? All of this goes into your strategy. And then how much is being purchased? Based on how much is being purchased in terms of dollar amount, are they using credit cards? Do you need a line of credit? Did you have an asset-based facility in place? You get the idea. How are you going to finance the service or product offerings of said agency? What is the cash flow turnaround? What's the accounts payable turnaround time? These are important questions you need to consider based on your agency. Now, typically in federal land, we're paid net 30. Net 30 is a big fancy way of saying once I submit my invoice for the month. So right now we're in the month of February. So March 1st, well, between March 1st and 5th, I'm going to submit my invoices for work done in February between the 1st and 5th of March. That's how it typically works. We get paid in the arrears. So between the 1st and the 5th of March, I'm going to submit my invoice. And within 30 days of invoice submission, I'm going to get paid, all things being equal. My invoice has no mistakes. Agency has money. All the dots are checked. We will be paid in net 30. Those are very traditional payment terms. As a small business aside, you should be asking for the Prompt Payment Act when it makes sense. Prompt Payment Act is net 15. It slows it increases the cash conversion cycle. You can collect money faster rather than having to wait the net 30 time frame. So make sure that if you're a small business, that you're taking advantage of the net 30 payment terms. But let's keep moving. And last but not least, our fifth point for today, we have to implement and execute against the strategy we developed in step 4. So step 5, or bullet item 5, is we have to implement and execute on our strategy. Now, at a very high level, your strategy should establish a robust bidding process. You got to get into a bidding rhythm. Now, this is not going on sam.gov the last minute and scouring the opportunities and just bidding blindly. I do not preach that approach. If you're doing that, that's not a viable long-term strategy. Do people do it? Yes. Is it sustainable? No, for a whole bunch of reasons we will not get into in this video. But when you establish your robust bidding process, you need to make sure you're doing a combination of subcontracting as well as priming for a whole lot of reasons I've talked about in previous videos. If Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, SAIC, these multi-billion-dollar companies can prime and sub, then so should you. And there are valid reasons for why you should employ those strategies when. We're not going to get into that in this video. I've talked about that numerous times in other videos because it's a very important and paramount piece of our arsenal as government contractors. But from a subcontracting perspective, you want to establish a corporate track record if you don't currently have one. Another reason, just a side note, for subbing, even if you have track record, you may not have track record with that particular agency, and it may boost your profile from a priming perspective when you show track record with that agency. That was free. That was free. There's a lot of reasons why people prime and sub, or sub specifically, and it's not just because they don't want to be in charge. That's not the reason. And it's not even a money reason all the time. Sometimes it's boosting your profile as a potential vendor or contractor for this agency. There's a thing we talk about called customer intimacy. I said we can go down this rabbit hole, but there's this thing we call customer intimacy, and we want to make sure we do as best the job as possible to get as much customer intimacy before bidding on a particular project. People do business with people they like and they trust. And I don't want to be the low-cost leader. And that's the strategy I see a lot of small businesses doing. Unknowingly, they're the low-cost leader. They won the contract for no other reason. They were low cost, which means they left money on the table. They were not as profitable in that contract as they could have been. It's a whole lot of reasons why that's not the best or optimal strategy. And I'm not in the game of winning money and breaking even or losing. But that's a conversation for a different day. Go back and watch some of my other videos on pricing. I go into that in great detail. But subcontracting, you want to establish a corporate track record. A lot of folks that come to government contracting have no track record. And if you look at the evaluation criteria in a lot of these solicitations, past performance is weighted. So what I don't want you doing is blindly submitting opportunities and you don't have the requisite past performance. Again, I talk about longevity in this game and sustainability. We only want to submit to contracts where we have a high probability of win, also known as a P-win. That is the industry terminology. I want to submit to contracts. I want to go through the solicitation and the bidding process for contracts that have a high probability of winning. But let's keep moving. When you're subcontracting, you have an indirect relationship with the target agency. I recognize we have new people to the channel. Some of these terms may be new to them, but when we talk about subcontracting, we're talking about an indirect relationship with the target agency. We're talking about a direct relationship with the agency. We're talking about a prime contractor. So the prime versus sub talks about your hierarchy and how far away you are from the customer or end customer. Sometimes the customer and end customer are not always the same. Now, prime contracting establishes a direct relationship with the target government agency. But we have to develop a bidding rhythm. As a small or as a large, you need to get into a rhythm of bidding consistently or semi-consistently. You have to increase the amount of opportunities going in your funnel. Think about this as a funnel. Every time you submit a bid as a prime or a sub, you're increasing the information going into a funnel. And slowly out the bottom trips opportunity. Some of those opportunities you're going to win, some of you're going to not. But you want to get as much in the funnel to increase your probability of win rate, and wins translate into actual dollars into the company. So based on all the things we did previously, where we identified what we were good at, where we identified our the proper coding system, when we did our market intelligence or market research, and then developing a strategy, it all culminates to this step, which is where we implement and execute a strategy that allows us to increase our bidding tempo, our bidding rhythm. You got to get into a rhythm. You cannot hit a home run if you do not step up to the bat. Stepping up to the plate is equivalent in government contracting to submitting the proposal or signing the team agreement with the subcontracting opportunity with the prime. But you have to get in the deal flow. You're gonna be successful in this space. You have to be in the deal flow. Both direct and indirect opportunities are gonna be key. But that's all I got for you in this video. Now, I want you to go back and watch some of my other videos, and I'm gonna see you in a future video. Until next time.